It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers but charges a lot less. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start as low as $35 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
Stu Gatz will join us shortly in advance of the massage that he's got to be looking forward to. Now, Mikey, of the three of us, you know him the best, as you work with him every Sunday here on ESPN Radio and all sorts of other stuff. You know that regardless of what complaint he may be lodging publicly, he loves this. He loves the fact that the loser of this wager is going to be massaging him.
Oh, 100%. Stu Gatz is going to turn the lights off. He's going to light a candle. He's going to I imagined it the other way with Stu Gatz doing the massaging and those little sausage fingers just creeping all over the place, finding all the nooks and crannies and the knots to really get out there. That's the disturbing visual that I covet. He's going to love this, though. He's already talking, really lovingly about your big, strong hands. I want you to manhandle him a little bit.
So that's what the stakes are of the Notre Dame-Miami wager between Golic and Dan Le Batard. We're going to preview that game in a couple of minutes with both coaches here just in a few minutes on Mike and Mike. A couple of quick tweets. Reaction to Golic's really strong thoughts on the anonymous Giants quotes earlier through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Sports Q tweets, I so agree with Golic. I hate the anonymous source who isn't man enough to say to say what they say with their name attached. Hashtag cowardly. And then Philly fan Dan tweets, this anonymous player for the Giants said what we already know. You just have to look at their effort to see the players aren't playing for the coach. Go ahead.
You don't play for the coach. You don't play. There's not one coach I played for where I went out on that field and said, you know what? This game I'm playing for you, coach. You can like your coach. You can dislike your coach. You don't go out and play for your coach. If you don't go out and play for the fact that you're playing and give your effort, and I get it. Mike brought it up last hour. I get it when all is falling apart and it's not that cohesive unit. I do understand it can be tougher. But the line about not playing for the coach, forget that. Mike, players don't play for the coach.
Oh, no. Usually, in a lot of cases, it can end up being the opposite. You can play in spite of, but I guess to the point about leadership in this is that then it falls on not only the coach, but the leadership in that organization to identify and say, okay, if these are the players that are mailing in right now that need some sort of coach's rah-rah speech to get them going, those are the guys we need gone. Like, we need the guys that are going to be self-motivated enough by, A, the paycheck that we're throwing their way because this is a business transaction, and B, their own pride in their professional work, that wouldn't be the case.
Here's my thought, and the tweeter's right. We all see what's going on. What is your motive for giving an anonymous quote? What do you think you're accomplishing by that? Are you trying to let the world know, hey, it's a mess in here, it ain't me. I can play ball. I can ball. Okay? There's all these other reasons on why I'm not looking really good on the field right now, and it ain't me. That's what's going on right here.
That was the point I did a terrible job of trying to make earlier with my concept of whistleblowers, which is to give information anonymously if you're deep throat and this is an investigation into something of that magnitude, if people's lives are at stake and things like that. That's admirable. To be giving anonymous quotes inside a football locker room about how things are deteriorating around you is cowardly. I would agree with that.
You're trying to tell everybody why it's not your fault is what you're doing.
That part I would maybe dispute just because your name's not on it, so no one knows where to not assign the blame in this outside of Josina Anderson, who is the one who had this specifically. So if you want Josina to know it's not your fault, congratulations, you accomplished that bit of good. This to me seems you want to signal to everyone else like there's problems and we need change. Like this is kind of like a little coup, right? Well, like you see the way this is going and you would like for everyone to know, including management. We always talk about when coaches get up in front of the mic, they're very aware of the message that they're sending to players who are listening. This player is probably very aware, I'd assume, of the message he's sending to everyone else, which is that there is disarray here. People above making decisions, take note of just how much chaos is going on within your building if you haven't already.
See, in my case, I'm not giving an anonymous quote that much credit. I'm just not. To me, I get what you're saying, but I'm also saying that these anonymous quote players are on the field and see that they're getting beat, see that they're not playing well, see that they're losing. And to me, part of their anonymous quote is to give an excuse on why that's happening. It's because we're in disarray. It's because our coach is not a leader. It's because he doesn't have a game plan. That's why we look this way. We're not really this bad. When last year, I believe, you had the same coach, right? Pretty much same players?
They
correct?
did have the same coach. Now, 17 of their players are on injured reserve this year, so it's the second
Certainly
most in the league. So
it.
a lot of the same players aren't there. They were on the roster. They've been injured. But, yes, your point is well taken. This is essentially the same team that made the playoffs last year, and no one seemed to have a problem with the coach.
We also know that winning and how well the team performs can make a coach look better than he is. I'm not going to let Ben McAdoo skate in all of this. You learn a lot about people when the chips go down. But to your point, this all really comes back to this idea, and it really is, I guess, based on the situations we laid down, either the person throwing out anonymous quotes is really smart and calculated and underhanded, or really dumb because you're trying to absolve yourself from blame in a way that points to absolutely no one in particular who would be absolved from that blame.
Exactly right. And at the end of the day, I think we all believe McAdoo is going to be gone and the whole thing is going to start over again. But they've got, 8 more games? You got 8 more games of this stuff. And now, listen, this is what the daily, the beat reporters are going to do. They're going to get in there and they're going to pry and they're going to ask and they're going to pry and they're going to pry. And you may get more stuff. Yeah, it's going to be interesting what now comes out of that locker room.
All right, let's get on to some other stuff here.
Yep.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive celebrating 5 years and more than 500 cars donated to vets. To learn more, visit keystoprogress.com. Okay, a blockbuster story yesterday in the New York Times and then expanded upon by our crew at Outside the Lines. Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, and this is what I was referring to when I said there are some things in life even billions of dollars cannot always buy you. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, who has emerged as, I think, probably the most powerful voice in the National Football League. But is that
do we say powerful or most heard? He's not afraid to be heard, but is he the most powerful?
Well, I
guess we could find out here.
Yeah. So somehow, I think when you have the biggest stadium, when you have the biggest team, when your team is the Cowboys, I feel like he's in the center of everything. He puts himself in the center of everything.
There, yeah.
Well, let me even take that out of it. I shouldn't have gone down that road. The Cowboys owner has hired famed lawyer David Boies, and people know David Boies. He represented Al Gore in the recount of the election in 2000. He actually represented the NFL in the CBA negotiations some years ago.
2011, yeah.
He has hired him. And together they are exploring the option of suing the league if Roger Goodell is awarded a contract extension after the 2018 season, as is being considered. And by the way, not just being considered. I mean, there is a belief that the committee that is assigned to put this together, of which Jones is not a member, is ready to move forward with the contract extension for Goodell at huge amounts of money. Jerry Jones has jumped into the middle of this, and in the story, as you read it further, not only is he threatening to sue the league, he's actually threatening to sue other individual owners in this. So you're talking about a guy who has not only gone rogue, but he is taking a huge stand, and this has been set up now really strongly as Jerry Jones on one side, Roger Goodell on the other, and it will be fascinating to see which owners fall where as it goes. Junior.
Well, that seems to be the point of all this because you heard our legal analysts say, what are they going to sue them for? What is he going to sue them for? What grounds is there to actually take legal action in all of this? So it seems to be about figuring out where the line in the sand is. Like, to your point, Jerry Jones is good at inserting himself into situations where he may not even be supposed to be in a lot of these. Like you mentioned, the compensation committee that's a part of deciding on the future of Roger Goodell's contract. It has 6 members. Jerry Jones isn't a member, but all we hear in this article is that he's basically been like a pseudo 7th member. He considers himself a 7th member. He's on a lot of the calls. He has a lot of this information, and that group asked him to leave, told the other owners, this is what's going on. This is what he plans to do. And so now you've kind of got a choice where either you let the fox into the den and you start having these lines divided and the whole place turns on it, or you check this guy. Like, this is a guy who's losing control, who's very used to, like all these owners are, of being billionaires and controlling every little part of their world. And when you rip control from this guy in a way that's happened in a few instances, one, financially, he believes because of protest, and 2, I guess in another way financially, because you're messing with one of his biggest assets in Zeke Elliott on a weekly basis now. You have ripped control from this guy, and you see how billionaires respond when you make control go away.
Again, Jerry Jones, to where he served the paper, basically this compensation committee Jerry Jones told them legal papers were being drawn up and would be served Friday if the committee did not scrap its plans to extend Goodell's contract. What's he suing? And he hasn't said what are the basis, what are the grounds. He hasn't identified the grounds of the lawsuit. I have no idea. To me, and others have said it, I'm not the one with this idea. A lot of people believe it's just a scare tactic. He has absolutely zero basis to sue anybody in this. But you're right, and the term they use is he wasn't part of the six compensation committee member. He was made an ad hoc member. So he was, here you're kind of a member now, you can have a say, and now that ad hoc has been revoked. Now those six have said, okay, Jerry, you're no longer part of this at all. What it's going to do, basically, is you're going to find out, because you need 24 votes, okay? When you say sue the league, it's like, who are you suing? It's like when you sue the NCAA, who are you suing? The university presidents? If you say you're suing the league, are you suing the owners? The owners of the league. The owners are the ones who hire Roger Goodell. So basically, I think that Jerry Jones is really firmly planting his foot in taking the temperature of, okay, who's with me? Who wants him out? Now's our chance. And supposedly there are 4 or 5 owners that do, and then supposedly a bunch of fence sitters of who they're kind of, that's who you go after. There are people that will want Roger Goodell back. There are those that won't want him back. And then there are the fence sitters that are going to decide this whole thing. And those are the ones that you're going for. And the one thing I will say, Jerry Jones inserts himself into a lot of situations. But what's one thing about all these billionaires? None of them want to be considered followers. Right? They all want to be considered leaders. So how many just start following Jerry Jones? That's going to be an interesting one. Just because he's the loudest in the room doesn't mean everyone's going to say, yeah, we're with Jerry. We stand behind Jerry.
Well, I think part of it might be how much they want to follow Jerry, but part of it might be how they perceive the job that Goodell has done.
Yep.
So Roger Goodell has built himself enormous equity, and I choose that word specifically, with the owners because of the way he handled the 2011 CBA negotiations. By everyone's estimation, he won that thing in a knockout in the first round, right? But now you could argue, anyone could have, that the NFL owners are so much more powerful, have such deeper pockets for all the reasons that we've gone over 1 trillion times on this show, that maybe anyone would have won that collective bargaining agreement, but he won it big, and it has made the owners hundreds of millions of dollars each. So you build up a lot of equity with guys when you do that for them, and that's why they pay you $44 million in a year. Since that time, one thing after another has gone wrong. And in no particular order, it has included the way the league has handled domestic violence, the way the league has handled the protests that have involved kneeling during the national anthem, that have so inflamed passions across the country, the way it has handled the issue of the way the league is perceived regarding CTE and other things. Now, these are all really complicated issues that I'm not sure anybody would have handled perfectly. But it could be argued, and maybe there are owners in that fraternity who argue, that the league is 0 for 3 on those, the 3 biggest issues facing them right now. And as a consequence, why would we just rubber stamp a contract extension for the guy in charge at huge dollars?
And that's what they believe they're paying him to do, right, is make those problems, mitigate them, make some of them go away, and make them less of a problem for the owners who want to just sit there and collect that paycheck. Because this is basically a really high-profile contract negotiation. Like, Roger Goodell wants no business of taking less money at this point. He's become accustomed to a lifestyle that's netted him $200 million so far from these guys. And the ultimate example of that phrase being really a complete farce, that it's not personal, it's just business, the whole reason this business is getting muddy because Jerry Jones was in on this committee extending Roger Goodell at the owners' meetings months ago. But since that time period, it's gotten personal because Jerry Jones's best player has been basically going through what Tom Brady went through last year with the Deflategate saga, where it's a week in, week out trial of the guy that you want on the field so you can win. And it's ultimately rubbed him the wrong way enough. The same way being left out of those meetings, I'm sure at the last round of ownership meetings about the protests, rubbed Jerry Jones the wrong way. Like, he's being pushed out of a lot of the rooms that he has forced himself in the center of for a long time, and he's clearly not responding well.
And if you look at the relationship between Jerry Jones, I'm sorry, Mike, and Papa John, and Papa John coming out and talking publicly about it being a lack of leadership, what was the word he used, a failure of leadership, whatever the specific word he used was, There are many people who perceive that to have been Jerry Jones' words in the mouth of one of the league's most significant partners and sponsors. So you can see where this battle lines have been drawn. I really don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, boy, certainly he's thrown the other pizza places at Papa John. I don't think it's really gone the way Papa John expected this thing to go, quite honestly. To Mike's point about the money, since August 2006 when he became commissioner, he has made $200 million, including $44 million in 2014, $34 million in 2015, and he's somewhat angry. The reports are that he's somewhat angry that they want to make this contract more performance-based, basically saying, I'm making these guys a lot of money. You have that?
Let me play that side of it, because we haven't gotten to that.
Yeah.
There's all this owner's side of it.
Yeah.
Then there's Goodell's side of it. Now, we know Roger Goodell, Mike and I do over the years and stuff like that. Most people obviously don't have a personal relationship with him, but we don't know him so well. I mean, we don't socialize together or anything like that. But there's one thing, the most important thing you read in that thing is he's made over $200 million.
Yes, he has.
He doesn't have Jerry Jones money, but he's got more than enough money to walk away from this if he decides, I don't need this anymore, and live a very, he's got as much money as almost any NBA superstar has. So he could walk away if he doesn't need this anymore. And our Seth Wickersham, who along with Don Van Natta has done magnificent reporting on all of this, suggests he doesn't think it's impossible that may happen.
There's some people who say, look, Jerry's kind of ready for a new commissioner, and he has some people in mind. There's other people who are saying, look, he wants an incentive-based deal with less guaranteed money. And we've been told that Roger Goodell does not want to take a deal like that. And he feels like he's made these guys a bunch of money. He's taken a ton of bullets for them over the years, and he doesn't think he deserves a haircut.
To me, this is what it all comes down to. And in this article, it said most owners would admit Roger's done a terrible job handling the anthem controversy, terrible job explaining the TV ratings decline, a terrible job on a number of other issues. And if they want to say a terrible job, what does it all come down to? It comes down to money. Because those owners sitting in that room understand that they're going to take some PR hits, and they can deal with PR hits, but it's when they hits their pocket, right? That's going to be the issue to them. And that's one thing Jerry is looking into. Can he bring in and show financials that actually show, hey, guys, Roger Goodell is costing you money? If he can do that, that to me is going to be all the difference in the world, because the NFL can take a lot. It can take a lot of abuse, and Roger Goodell's the one that takes a lot of the abuse and gets a big paycheck for it. They can take a lot. But the owners, they will start to – it's just like when things go wrong at companies, and when does the company really sit up and take notice? Well, when the big advertisers start pulling in, it costs them money. It's the same thing here. When the owners all of a sudden realize, you know what? Not as much money is going into my pocket. We may need to rethink this. So to me, Mike, that's what it all comes down to is – can it be shown, and this is what Jerry Jones is going to want to do, hey, Roger Goodell is actually costing us money. If he can prove that, he may get them to side with him. If he can't, it's a $14 billion a year industry that is just stuffing money in the pockets of the owners. If that's not going to change much, Roger Goodell is going to be the commissioner.
My interest in this lies is what comes next, because we have basically one of what I see as two outcomes mainly that can happen. Is one is Jerry Jones can get that group on his side, and we likely face the prospect of a new commissioner for the first time in a while. Because if Jerry Jones can get enough people on his side, that's the way this goes. If Roger Goodell really isn't into the business of taking less money to do the same job, then you assume there's going to be a different guy, and it's going to be Jerry's guy more than likely, because that seems to be the other part of this people are disgruntled with. So we've got that where we either see a change in the power atop the league, or we see a change in the power of one of the chief movers and shakers in Jerry Jones. Because if you go and call everyone else out, if you're that friend in your fantasy league that starts pointing at everyone else and saying you're cheating, you're this, you're that, and then everyone sides against you, what happens? You're usually not back in that fantasy league the next year. And they can't make Jerry sell the Cowboys, but they can potentially make his voice and see his voice become a lot quieter in those meeting rooms and freeze him out a little bit more based on basically trying to stage a coup.
Mike and Mike presented by Shell Pennzoil. Get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program now at fuelrewards.com/gold. So before I pose this question, and I'm going to take it to break on the question, before I pose it, I want to make it clear. I do not believe Roger Goodell is going to be replaced as the NFL commissioner anytime soon. I believe the outcome of all of this is that he is going to remain the commissioner. I don't know exactly what the mechanics of it will be, but I think he's going to be the commissioner. He's going to get another contract, and he's going to stay. Having said that, it is sort of an interesting exercise. Who would become the commissioner if he were to be out? Roger Goodell, for those who don't know, succeeded Paul Tagliabue, but Goodell has been working for the league for decades. He was there. He worked his way up to becoming, sort of the number 2 guy at the league, but he's been there forever, and he's been someone that they've known forever. I don't think that person exists right now. Maybe there's someone in there that I'm not aware of. I don't think that person exists. Yeah, I do not know. So when baseball was looking for a new commissioner, they stayed inside. They hired Rob Manfred, who was, I believe, the COO, whatever he was. He was the guy under Selig for years and years and years. Adam Silver, same thing. David Stern, he was the number 2 guy. He was being groomed. He was being prepped. He was ready to go. This is a different circumstance. This isn't Roger Goodell at 70 deciding he's going to retire and someone new. I think they would have to go outside, and it is kind of an interesting question. Who would make a good commissioner for the National Football League?
You're not going to say you, are you?
No.
Yeah, this seemed like where this question was going.
No.
Again. You want to be the baseball
commissioner. It's a 15-year-old joke.
You know.
I'm not doing that one. I'm asking you an honest question. Who do you think would make a good – this is a tough job, and they're entering a brutal period. I mean, what they've got going on now between all of the concussion stuff and wherever this thing is going to net out on the kneeling and everything else and dipping television ratings and a complete change in the way the viewing is done and everything else, it's not an easy job. I'd be really curious to hear who you think, and on Twitter, at us, at Mike and Mike, who do you think would make a good commissioner of the National Football League if it isn't going to be Roger going forward?
Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
To go back to what we were talking about with Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell and everything else, Rich Hayes tweets at us, Roger Goodell should walk away, write a book about what goes on behind the scenes. He would become a bestseller. I don't think he would do that.
I don't know why he would want to do that. Listen,
as far as writing a book.
Yeah, exactly.
But walking away, over the last 10 years, the only 2 people in sports who made more money than Roger Goodell were A-Rod and Kobe Bryant. Yeah. Roger Goodell, just from 2006 to 2015, made $212 million.
You know how it is, though. You make a lot of money, there's nothing wrong with even wanting more money. And let's say he doesn't make – remember, the number kind of fluctuates. We all keep saying the $44 million. He didn't make that every year since he's been commissioner.
No, he only made 34 the other
34 the year before. He makes a lot of money. So now, yeah, you've made a lot of money, but what if you're still offered – 25, 30, 35 million. I mean, you walk away from something like that. I don't know. Listen, I'm not in the man's shoes. I don't know. He's taken a lot of arrows. Some deserve, some he does that he takes them for the owners. That's his job to do. And some he brings on himself as well. That's a lot of money to walk away from.
That part of it's just like, that's all relative, though. Like, it's relative to your space. Like, the average person would say that about a veteran-level NFL player.
That's right.
Who might be on a bad team, who's on some of his last years in the league, and who has a number in mind, who goes into every season, especially if they're maybe signing some of those, like, smaller one-year deals on the back end, and says, I got a number that makes this worth my while. And maybe for Roger Goodell at this point, he's got a number that he says, this makes it worth my while to keep dealing with the Jerry Joneses of the world barking up my tree, to keep dealing with the public that constantly wants to bash me, and to make sure that I can live comfortably enough to get by with the rest of that, knowing it's going to be part of the process. You know, like anything else, it's not about Sundays. It's worrying about everything that it takes to get up to that point.
You're right. I agree. I agree. There is that number that, he and his wife and family, because they're all part of this as well, you just say, okay, maybe this is worth staying. Maybe we don't get that. Maybe we just walk away.
So a lot of people, as I raised that question, again, for those, there's always a new audience joining us, I want to make it clear, I don't believe he's going to be gone. I believe that he is going to continue in that job.
I agree. He'll get the extension, and he will be the commissioner. I agree with you.
But it is an interesting exercise to try and figure out who would they want if he were to be out, let's just say for the sake of discussion, he just decides, you know what, I'm done with this. I obviously don't have the support of a lot of the most important people in that room. I sit here and I get ripped to shreds every single day, taking one bullet after another for these owners. I'm done with that. I'm walking away. Who would go? Because there has been a never-ending succession about people who in these jobs of people who've been in the league office for years. Adam Silver was in the league office for years. Rob Manfred, the league office for years. Roger Goodell's been working in the NFL office since the 80s. So I don't think they have that person now. So a lot of people are suggesting Bill Polian. A lot of people are suggesting Condoleezza Rice. I'll tell you who I think would actually be. What? Why are you not shaking your head?
Yeah, this is going to be in-house. No doubt.
Define in-house.
There's going to be someone who's there.
In the office?
We don't know that person. You have 32 owners. Well, 31. You have obviously the Green Bay Packers, but they have a representative. 32 owners who are going to look at a bill. Listen, Bill Polian and Condi Rice would be fantastic to head things. But you have to appease 32 different owners. And what do these 32 owners want to do? Control the person that they're hiring to do that job. That's going to be an in-house job. I don't think there is any doubt about that. Well, in my opinion.
I don't know a lot about who the current in-house candidates are.
I don't either. Do we know a lot about Roger Goodell?
Well, yeah,
years
people
ago?
inside did. Yeah,
okay,
he's been groomed for this
I'm not
forever.
inside. I mean, there may be somebody inside that's being groomed. I have no idea. I find it hard to believe that there isn't somebody on the inside who may be rising up the ranks here. I don't know.
Well, and to that point, who established, it's kind of like anything else when you get down to where the league is now, because you just said it. This has kind of been a low point PR-wise and in a number of other ways for the NFL. So if Roger Goodell were to leave them high and dry, who looks at this situation and says this is a breeding ground for success? Like we talk about this all the time with assistant coaches in the NFL who look long and hard at the jobs that they are potentially going to get. We see it with Sam Darnold, who's talking about staying in school another year so he doesn't have to play for the Cleveland Browns. Would someone like an established person like Bill Polian or Condoleezza Rice look at that from the outside and say, oh, yeah, I want those problems right now?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's anyone like hilariously in the early 90s when the Major League Baseball owners staged a coup and forced Faye Vincent out. Right. They put one of their own guys in. Can you imagine one of the owners now? Bud Selig is who we're talking about. Can you imagine one of the owners now doing that? Can you imagine Dan Snyder saying, yeah, I'll become the commissioner? Yeah. You'd be crazy. Yep. I mean, these guys would never consider doing that. So you need someone who's from the inside. You need someone who understands the way everything works on the inside. You need someone who they trust. You need someone who is going to be a good forward-facing person. I think Amy Trask would be an excellent commissioner of the National Football League. I've heard a lot of people say this is not an original thought on my part.
Big fan
to make
of
it
Amy.
clear.
Yeah.
But for any number of reasons, and she's a person who, again, while working in the front office of an NFL team, up to and including being the CEO, I believe she was the CEO of that was the exact title. That she had at the Raiders.
For the Raiders,
but she didn't make hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. It's got to be someone for whom the amount of money that this job pays is a difference maker. Because if you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, you're not coming to work for these guys.
No.
This is they are the most complicated board of trustees you could ever, or board of directors in this case it would be, that you could ever possibly deal with.
And also, think, to Mike's point, think of what you're walking into. If this truly is, and again, we all agree, I think you agree too, you think Roger's going to be gone?
Oh, yeah.
You think
I think he's going to be here.
So we all think Roger's going to be the commissioner, so we're just kind of playing out this exercise. But to that point, who's stepping into this? Because right now, it's not a pretty picture. Because one of the things you do is you compare it to other sports. And we compare it to basketball being like the Valhalla right now. Wow, they got it going on right now. Baseball has it going on really well. And boy, the NFL's got some real PR and possibly legal issues, though they keep seeming to, at the end of it all, win the legal issues. The road to it can be an up and down thing. So, yeah, you'd have to find someone that said, oh, yeah, I want to take on all this mess going on right now.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's an easy part of this that says, man, you look at the guy, another one who's doing a really good job at this right now, slide a blank check across the table to Adam Silver and tell him, hey, come on over here to this party. You've done really well, but it's entirely different. I mean, you've got a commissioner that's so tailor-made for that league, that's a little more progressive overall in what it's willing to endorse, that can skew a certain way, that's not as beholden to the ownership, that can do a little more player-owned adventure with the fans, because ownership's a little bit neutered by the power of the players in that league, and that's never going to be the case in the NFL because of the injury risk.
So, to take it all the way back to the beginning, where does this go? Jerry Jones is he's threatening to go after the league. He is threatening potentially even legal action against some of the other owners. the last time I can think of. Now, this is not the first time he's done this, remember? I mean, he went out with his own, he had his own sponsorships and all that kind of stuff for his stadiums and all that, and he won all that stuff. He came in and he was like a wrecking ball or whatever, the bulldozer, when he first took over the Cowboys in a group that has generally been pretty staid, and he knocked over a lot of furniture and stuff like that. But since then, he's sort of now assumed sort of the patronly air, I think, of sort of the senior owner, and people look to him in that way and whatnot. This is a total change. So, I mean, this can't just disappear into nothing. He can't just threaten to sue them and they say, okay, we're not paying any attention to you, and Arthur Blank signs the contract with Roger Goodell, and then everyone says, okay, that's done now. I mean, there has to be ending of this.
They absolutely can.
No, but then my point is, and then they can't all just say, okay, well, so we did that, now we move on. I mean, something else is going to come out about this, and I'll be curious to see what it is.
I think like anything else, you can. This is a major fight. That doesn't mean that after the major, it's like in a locker room, I can pare everything down to a locker room, a major fight. After the fight's over, okay, we're still teammates, all in it for the same thing. If Jerry Jones loses this or wherever which way it goes, it's not like they're all still not going to be pulling on the same rope to try and make their $14 billion. So, I mean, if you're an owner sitting there on that compensation committee, and listen, these are strong-willed guys as well. They're sitting there going, you're going to do what by tomorrow? You're going to serve us with papers for what? What are you suing us for? Go ahead. Let's see what you got.
That's what I mean.
I mean,
and when you're saying these 32 guys are all pulling on the same rope, the difference between a locker room and the owners is in a locker room, you're all listening to the message of one leader and you're expected to do one person's vision. These guys are 32 different guys with 32 different visions of what they should be doing right now. I don't know that they're all pulling on I know they aren't pulling on the rope in the same direction right now.
Right.
And I don't think they will be next week, regardless of what the outcome of this is.
No, and to your point, listen, we football teams, sports teams all have leadership councils, groups of captains, what have you. And if you had one in that group who decided to basically turn around and say, nah, I'm not with all the rest of you. Either you can get with me or I'm going to try and burn this thing down. After the fact, you can maybe earn trust back over a course of a long period of time, but that's also dependent on the personalities involved. And what we've seen from Jerry is he's already a personality that doesn't seem like he's going to be willing to get back in line and just do everyone else's bidding again. That doesn't seem to be his bag.
Mike and Mike, you guys have been around for 18 years. That's an eternity in this business. You make sports what it should be, fun. And you do a great job respecting the fans, the players, and the coaches. The fans wake up every morning, Monday through Friday, just to hear you guys go at it. It's been a pleasure for me in my career here at ESPN to be a part of your coverage. Thank you very much, and congratulations. You guys are the best.
There might not be a guy that we always talk about, a guy like Bill Curry, who is just so well respected by everybody. Herm is right there as well. I mean, any room that man walks into, he's so respected.
100%. He was the coach of the Jets during a chunk of our show. And we were doing Mike and Mike. He was the coach. He got hired with I want to say 2000. I want to say that, there was that one Al Groh year. Well, right in there somewhere. He was the coach of the Jets for the early part of the show, and I would never have imagined when I was yelling and screaming crazily about everything that they do, because no one has ever been the coach of the Jets that I didn't yell and scream at them regularly, that I would get to know him and that I would what can you say? I love the guy. I mean, I love him, and he and I got thrown together in this charity this year that we've done a couple of events for, this 9/11 charity that has just been fantastic, because he was the coach of the Jets on 9/11, and if you hear him tell the stories about that, they are remarkable as well. So anyway, Herman, what can we say? We love you back as much as you could possibly imagine.
Sports Center brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Other wireless providers say they're going to cut your bill in half. Who knows what kind of coverage you're going to get? With Straight Talk Wireless, you are going to get nationwide coverage on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks, and their no-contract unlimited plan, just $45 a month.
Well, let's go on the field, because we've got about as good a college football Saturday in front of us as I can remember. Certainly the best of this season and one of the best in recent memory. I mean, right up against each other, prime time Saturday night, you have Notre Dame, Miami, and TCU, Oklahoma, both of which are basically postseason games, right? These are playoff games. Plus, in the midst of this, you got Georgia, Auburn, and all these other huge games. But let's start with the one that obviously is nearest and dearest to the hearts of the two men sitting here with me on the set, and that is Notre Dame versus Miami. I've got both coaches, and then I'll get a breakdown from you guys. First, here's Mark Richt, coach of the U, talking about this turnover chain that is basically sweeping the nation.
I mean, how many kids are going to get a turnover chain for Christmas? I don't know. We'll see. But, shirts, chains, they're making them out of everything you could dream of. I've heard the Little League teams around the city, throughout the year, we're getting either a turnover chain or something like it. It's just, it's a lot of fun. And I know the recruits love it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good, clean, fun.
So it is. Agree with that. I mean, it's a cool thing. I mean, it gets the guys motivated. They get to wear the chain for that series after they force a turnover. I think it's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Stupid chain.
You don't like it?
Let's keep it moving. Stupid chain.
Okay.
You can tell who was in the college.
Wearing the Notre Dame hat.
No, you know what? I was actually surprised at how this took off because, honestly, my first thought when I saw it was, man, there's no way college kids are going to think this is cool, like coaches coming in. Like, I don't know where this idea germinated from, if it was player-driven, if it was coaches saying, hey, we've got this incentive. Part of me was like, man, guys are going to think this is kind of whack, but it is taking on a life of its own. So to each their own.
And then there's the Brian Kelly soundbite that we have today as he gets ready to coach this game. He was reminded that he has now coached 100 games at Notre Dame. Here's what he had to say.
Does that number feel like an abstraction to you? That's
what did you ask?
100 games here.
I've been here 100 games.
This is your 100th game.
That's like 1,000 dog years, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
I agree with that. That's a job that you could see the hair gray from when you first take the job to when a long tenure into the job.
Notre Dame head coaches age in presidential years.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So we've got those two coaches. We've got these two guys here. Golic Sr., you have a massage of Stugatz riding on the outcome. Golic Jr., you were watching both these teams play all season long. Give me the breakdown.
Yeah, so it's interesting you mentioned this game going up against Oklahoma TCU because you remember the last time Notre Dame played a really big night game, it was at home against USC,
right.
And it was up against Penn State, Michigan. That was a pretty big game. What happened with both those games that night? They're both pretty lopsided.
Yep.
Both blowouts.
I think that's what Saturday night could look like again.
Do you like Notre Dame? I'm just guessing. You haven't told me. I'm guessing you're going to tell me that Notre Dame and Oklahoma are going to win in blowouts.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma and TCU, I'm pretty confident in predicting that because I went back and watched TCU, that game they beat Oklahoma State, and I turned it on. It was the all-22 copy, so I didn't have any of the sound. I didn't have any of the broadcast. I didn't have any of that. I just had what I saw on tape, and I kept waiting for the TCU team that was supposed to be better in theory than the Oklahoma State team that I saw them beat, and I never saw it pop up. So that, to me, seemed like one of those situations where it didn't make sense.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, I didn't see sound football from TCU. I saw a team that's going to try and get it out on the edges, that's going to try and let Kenny Hill make plays, but that can't really do anything when they're asked to play real football inside the box that eventually Oklahoma is going to force you to do. And I understand defensive efficiency, they're like 69th in the country, but still at some point you have to imagine the athletes that they've got in there are going to test them because Oklahoma is a group on the other side with a little more to write home about up front. They've got an All-American at left tackle. They've got a little more of a competent outfit. I just don't see what TCU does as sustainable when you get up against other top-level competition.
Going to fall on that TCU defense, I think, a lot as well, giving up just 14 points a game. Oklahoma giving up 27 points a game. So we'll see if that Gary Patterson defense can get it done. As far as Notre Dame and Miami, I thought Kirk Herbstreit, who's doing the game, brought up a great point. Miami likes to play some man. So what happens when you play man and you have a quarterback that can run? When you play in man, a lot of times your back is turned because you're covering your man. So Brandon Wimbush, he could take off and run. So I'll be interested to see, is there a spy there that's going to try and spy Wimbush, and that's going to be a heck of a one-on-one matchup.
Player to watch for Notre Dame, Drew Tranquil, plays that hybrid safety outside linebacker. Notre Dame's defense has forced a lot of turnovers. Against Power 5, Notre Dame tied with Penn State #1 in turnover margin. Miami behind them, but 4 straight games forcing 4 turnovers a game for Miami. That's not going to hold up. That's not sustainable.
Let's pause here. We'll get Stugatz in. We got to keep looking ahead to a huge college schedule. And don't forget the Carolina Reaper Pepper Challenge still to come. Mike and Mike.